Have you been hospitalized or any relatives of yours and you heard from the doctor about MRSA positive? MRSA means Methicillin Resistant Staphylococcus aureus. But before this bug becomes methicillin resistant, let's start study the bacteria itself and its characteristic. Staphylococcus is a gram-positive aerobic organism. It is a bacterium of a genus that includes many pathogenic kinds that cause pus formation, especially in the skin and mucous membrane. What is aerobic organism? Aerobic organism is an organism that can survive and grow in an oxygenated environment. In contrast, anaerobic organism is an organism that does not require oxygen for growth. Some anaerobic reacts negativity and even die if oxygen is present. Staphylococcus aureus, also called Staph. It is a normal part of microbial community that lives in and on human. It usually resides in the skin of about a third of the population. It can spread to others by skin-to-skin contact or when contaminated surfaces are touched. If the microbes causes an infection, it can look like a bug bite filled with pus. However, more serious infection that enter the bloodstream or organs can be very serious and may lead to death. There's three things to differentiate the Staphylococcus aureus. 1 is by gram staining, 2 doing a catalase test, and 3 by doing a culture. Staphylococcus aureus is a gram-positive, round-shaped bacterium. They arrange in grape-like cluster as seen in a gram stain. Catalase is an enzyme that converts hydrogen peroxide to water and oxygen gas. Catalase positive produce bubbles when you mix organism with hydrogen peroxide. If a gram-positive cocci is catalase positive and presumed to be a Staphylococcus, the coagulase test is often performed. Before we go to culture, let's discuss coagulase test. Coagulase test is used to differentiate the Staphylococcus aureus from coagulase negative Staphylococcus. Coagulase is an enzyme produced by Staphylococcus aureus that converts fibrinogen in plasma to fibrin. Staphylococcus aureus produce two forms of coagulase, bound and free. Slide coagulase test is done to detect bound coagulase or clumping factor. Tube coagulase test is done to detect the free coagulase. The slide coagulase test detects cell-associated clumping factor, sometimes referred to as bound coagulase, which reacts with fibrinogen to cause aggregation of the organism. Heavy suspension of organism mixed with a drop of a Staph aureus reagent. Rotate the card gently after 20 seconds. A positive result of coagulase is indicated by the development of agglutinated pattern, showing clearly visible clumping of the latex particle with the clearing of the milky background. Positive coagulase test showing visible clumping, and the negative coagulase test does not agglutinate and the milky appearance remains substantially unchanged throughout the test. Tube coagulase test is done to detect the free coagulase. The test detects staphylocoagulase enzymes, which is also known as the free coagulase. The enzyme is not bound to the surface of the cells. Staphylocoagulase is an extracellular molecule that causes a clot to form when the bacterial cells are incubated with the plasma. In coagulase test, read as positive any degree of the clot formation. Often the plasma is converted into a stiff gel that remains in place when the tube is tilted or inverted. In negative coagulase test, there is no clot. Plasma remains liquid. Lastly is the microbial culture. Microbial culture is a method of multiplying microbial organisms by letting them reproduce in predetermined culture medium under controlled laboratory conditions. It's used to determine and identify the type of organism. Culture of Staphylococcus aureus are beta hemolytic. It's completely hemolyzed red blood cell on an agar plate. Staphylococcus aureus can be differentiated from the other beta hemolytic cocci by their elaboration of the golden pigment on sheep blood agar. Staphylococcus aureus is notorious for its ability to become resistant to antibiotics. Infection caused by antibiotic-resistant strain is called Methicillin Resistant Staphylococcus aureus or MRSA. Staph can usually be treated with antibiotics, but over the decades, some strains of staph like MRSA have become resistant to antibiotics. MRSA was first discovered in 1961. It's now resistant to methicillin, amoxicillin, penicillin, and oxacillin, and other common antibiotics known as cephalosporin. Vancomycin is one of the few antibiotics useful in treating infection caused by MRSA. Unfortunately, strains of Staphylococcus aureus resistant to vancomycin are now being reported. While some antibiotics still work, MRSA is constantly adapting. Researchers developing new antibiotics are having a tough time keeping up. MRSA is contagious. It can spread when someone touches a contaminated surface, from person to person, especially in places where the large group of people are close together, like schools, camps, or college dorm. Often, this happens when people with skin infections share personal things like razor, bed, linens, towels, or clothing. In the past, MRSA mostly affected people in nursing homes or hospitals. It was more likely to be seen in people with weak immune systems. It was also more common in the people who had a surgical wound, but now some otherwise healthy people outside of those settings are getting the infection. There are two ways a person can have MRSA, either as a carrier or as an active infection. A carrier means that the person has no symptoms, but the MRSA bacteria are living in their nose or in their skin. This is also called colonization. An active infection means that the MRSA bacteria has entered a person's body through an opening, usually a cut, scrape, or wound, and that person now has the symptoms. Infection can be community-acquired, occur in a healthy individual in the absence of exposure to healthcare setting, hospital-acquired through patient to patient. Most Staph aureus skin infection, including MRSA, appear as a bump or infected area on the skin that might be red, swollen, painful, warm to the touch, pool of pus or other drainage, accompanied by fever. Getting medical care early makes it less likely that infection will become serious. Steps to reduce the risk of MRSA infection: maintain good hand and body hygiene, clean hands often, and clean your body regularly, especially after exercise. Keep cuts, scrapes, and wounds clean and covered until healed. Avoid sharing personal items such as towels and razor. Get care early if you think you might have an infection. Meanwhile, the best way to beat MRSA is not to let it infect us. As Benjamin Franklin said, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe.